In a remote coastal town nestled between jagged cliffs and dense forests, a chilling legend had woven itself into the very fabric of the community, a legend known as the Drowned Oracle. It was a tale that transcended generations, whispered in hushed tones by those who feared its grim reality. The story began with a peculiar lighthouse that stood tall on the cliffs overlooking the turbulent sea. Its brilliant light had guided ships safely for centuries, but it was the keeper of this lighthouse who bore the ominous burden of the Drowned Oracle's curse. Over a century ago, a man named Elias had been the lighthouse keeper. He was a solitary figure, known for his reclusive nature and mysterious habits. Rumors suggested that he had become obsessed with the ancient, arcane rituals practiced by the town's secretive cult, the Keepers of the Abyss. One moonless night, a violent storm ravaged the coast, casting the lighthouse into darkness. Ships floundered, and sailors perished in the treacherous waters. The town blamed Elias for the catastrophe, believing he had neglected his duties to partake in dark ceremonies. As the legend goes, in a desperate bid to regain the favor of the cult, Elias performed a forbidden ritual at the lighthouse, invoking the wrath of an otherworldly entity, the Drowned Oracle. In exchange for his loyalty, the Oracle granted Elias the power to control the sea, but it came at a horrific cost. Elias's body began to wither and age at an unnatural pace, and his eyes turned an eerie shade of deep, abyssal blue. He became a vessel for the Oracle's malevolent will, forever bound to the lighthouse. The townspeople, terror-stricken and desperate, confronted Elias in a violent frenzy. They dragged him to the cliffs and cast him into the raging sea below, believing they had rid themselves of the cursed lighthouse keeper. However, the Oracle's curse did not die with Elias. Instead, it lived on within the lighthouse, which became a sentinel of darkness, guiding ships to their doom rather than safety. Sailors who ventured too close to the cursed waters reported eerie lights emanating from the lighthouse, drawing them inexorably toward the perilous cliffs. The legend told of a brave fisherman, Aiden, who had heard the stories but refused to believe them. Aiden was a man of reason and science, convinced that there must be a logical explanation for the lighthouse's ominous reputation. Determined to debunk the myths, he embarked on a treacherous journey. Aiden reached the coastal town on a stormy night, his boat tossed about by furious waves. Despite the tumultuous sea, he steered his vessel closer to the ominous lighthouse. As he approached, he noticed the eerie blue glow emanating from its windows, and a chill ran down his spine. Ignoring the warning signs, Aiden anchored his boat and climbed the treacherous cliffs to reach the lighthouse. Inside, he found a decrepit, shadowed chamber filled with ancient tomes and cryptic symbols. It was a shrine to the Drowned Oracle, a place where the forbidden rituals had taken place. As Aiden delved deeper into the mysteries of the lighthouse, he stumbled upon a tattered journal that once belonged to Elias. The journal contained chilling accounts of his descent into madness, his dark pact with the Oracle, and the terrible price he had paid. Suddenly, the room began to reverberate with an unearthly, guttural chanting, and Aiden felt an invisible force pulling him toward the lighthouse's central chamber. He was not alone. The Oracle had sensed an intruder and sought to make him the new keeper. Aiden struggled against the relentless pull, his heart pounding as he realized the true horror of the legend. Desperation fueled his resolve, and he raced against time to break the curse and escape the lighthouse's grasp. Frantically, he searched for a way to sever the connection between Elias and the Drowned Oracle. He discovered a hidden chamber beneath the lighthouse, a cavern filled with brackish water. In its depths lay the wretched skeletal remains of Elias, still bound by the curse. Aidan understood that to free himself and the town from the oracle's grip, he must confront the entity head on. With a heart heavy with dread, he recited an incantation he had uncovered in Elias's journal, calling upon the power of the sea itself. The lighthouse quaked, and the room filled with a deafening roar. As the oracle's malevolent presence surged, Aidan felt a surge of agony as the oracle fought back, its insidious power coursing through him. But he persevered, channeling the forces of nature to banish the entity. With a blinding flash, the oracle was cast into the brackish waters, its terrible form writhing and dissipating into the depths. The lighthouse's malevolent glow dimmed, and its cursed influence lifted from the sea. Exhausted and shaken, Aidan emerged from the lighthouse, knowing that he had broken the curse, but at a terrible cost. The legends of the drowned oracle would live on as a warning to those who dared to tamper with forces beyond their comprehension. As for the coastal town, it was forever changed. The lighthouse remained a silent sentinel, no longer a harbinger of doom, but a solemn guardian of the treacherous waters. Aidan's bravery and sacrifice became a part of the town's lore, a story whispered in reverence and fear, reminding them that some legends were born from truths too horrifying to forget. And so, the legend of the drowned oracle persisted, haunting the dreams of those who heard it, a tale of darkness and redemption, of a man who faced the abyss and emerged forever changed, carrying the weight of a curse that would never truly let him sleep. In the remote village, deep within the ominous forest, the tale of the Shadowed Wraith evolved over the years, growing darker and more terrifying with each retelling. The villagers spoke of the malevolent creature that prowled the woods, a being whose very presence could curdle the blood and freeze the heart. The stories had become a haunting tapestry of horror, and none who heard them could sleep soundly thereafter. The legend's roots reached back centuries, but its most recent chapter began with a young woman named Elara. She resided on the village's outskirts, known for her unwavering curiosity and fearlessness. Elara had a reputation for scoffing at the ominous tales of the Shadowed Wraith, believing them to be mere superstition, conjured up by the elders to keep the younger generations in check. One moonless night, when the village lay under a thick veil of darkness, Elara set out into the foreboding woods with a flickering lantern. Her purpose was to seek a rare herb, rumored to grant visions of the future, an endeavor fueled by her defiance of the legend. The eerie silence of the forest surrounded her, punctuated only by the soft rustle of leaves beneath her feet and the distant hoots of owls. Unfazed, she ventured deeper, guided by the faint glow of her lantern. Hours crept by, and last, Elara found the mysterious herb she sought. As she reached down to pluck it, a chilling gust of wind extinguished her lantern, casting her into absolute darkness. Panic surged within her as she fumbled to relight it. Her heart pounded, and the forest seemed to awaken with eerie whispers and rustling shadows. Then, a voice whispered from the darkness, so close it seemed to brush against her ear. "Why do you trespass in my domain, little one?" Elara's blood ran icy as she turned to confront a shadowy figure with eyes that pierced the blackness. The figure, known to the villagers as the Shadowed Wraith, spoke in a voice that was both seductive and terrifying. It told Elara of its insatiable hunger for fear, how it had lurked in the shadows for centuries, growing stronger with each soul it consumed. It explained that those who ventured into the forest at night were its favorite prey, for their fears were the most potent. Elara's courage waned as she realized the dire predicament she was in. The creature moved closer, its shadowy form becoming more defined. It extended a bony hand toward her and said, "Give me your fear, and I will grant you a glimpse of your future." Desperation clouded Elara's judgment, and she agreed. She closed her eyes and allowed her deepest fears to surface. The creature's cold touch sent a shiver down her spine as it began to drain her fear, feeding on it like a ravenous beast. As her fear diminished, Elara's vision blurred, and she was granted a horrifying glimpse of her future. She saw the village in ruins, her loved ones suffering, and the Shadowed Wraith reigning supreme, a nightmarish monarch over a kingdom of despair. Horror washed over her, and she pulled away from the creature. But it was too late. The Shadowed Wraith had tasted her fear, and its malevolence surged. It laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the forest, and with a gesture of its hand, it cast a curse upon Elara. Her body began to wither, and she felt herself fading into a shadow, becoming one with the forest, destined to haunt it for all eternity. The legend of the Shadowed Wraith grew darker that night, and Elara's fate served as a chilling warning to all who heard the tale. The villagers lived in constant fear of the malevolent entity that dwelled in the forest, their dreams haunted by the horrifying vision Elara had witnessed. As the years passed, the forest grew thicker, the stories grew scarier, and the Shadowed Wraith continued to feed on the fear of those who dared to venture into its realm. But the terror didn't end there. The once prosperous village began to wither, mirroring Elara's cursed fate. Crops failed, livestock perished, and illness ran rampant. The village's nightmares became increasingly vivid, with visions of the Shadowed Wraith infiltrating their sleep, whispering promises of doom and despair. One by one, the villagers fell prey to the relentless torment of the Shadowed Wraith. Madness gripped the village, and a palpable sense of dread settled over the land like an eternal fog. Those who could fled, leaving behind a ghostly, forsaken place. The stories of the Shadowed Wraith, now infused with the collective horror of generations, reached far and wide, serving as a dire warning to anyone who dared venture near the cursed forest. The village's tales, ever more elaborate and terrifying, lived on as a haunting legacy of fear, ensuring that no one would ever sleep soundly again in the shadow of the Shadowed Wraith. In a desolate corner of the world, there stood an abandoned asylum known as the Blackwood Sanitarium. Its grim reputation had spread far and wide, whispered among the brave few who dared to venture into its forbidding shadows. Over the decades, countless chilling tales had woven a tapestry of horror around this place, but one story stood out, casting a haunting shadow over all the others. The legend spoke of a deranged Dr. Silas Blackwood, who had been the head of the sanitarium in the early 20th century. He was notorious for his gruesome experiments on the patients, pushing the boundaries of medical ethics to their darkest limits. Dr. Blackwood believed that, through pain and suffering, he could unlock hidden potential within the human mind. The tale began with a young woman named Emily, a paranormal investigator fascinated by the macabre and unexplained. She had heard rumors of the Blackwood Sanitarium's supernatural activity and decided to investigate, convinced that the stories were exaggerated. Armed with her equipment and a team of fellow enthusiasts, Emily embarked on a fateful expedition. The day was overcast as they arrived at the dilapidated asylum. Broken windows stared out like hollow eyes, and the air hung heavy with a sense of foreboding. They entered cautiously, their footsteps echoing through empty hallways that seemed to stretch on forever. As Emily explored the decaying building, she discovered remnants of Dr. Blackwood's cruel experiments. A room filled with rusty surgical instruments, jars of preserved organs, and journals detailing the agonizing procedures performed on patients. It was clear that madness had reigned within these walls. The investigation took a chilling turn when Emily's team began to hear disembodied whispers, frantic cries for help, and the echoing footsteps of unseen entities. The temperature plummeted, and they captured unsettling images on their cameras, apparitions that seemed to be trapped in a never-ending cycle of torment. One night, as they delved deeper into the asylum's dark history, Emily and her team encountered a room that sent shivers down their spines. It was a small, windowless chamber with walls covered in frenzied scribbles, each line bearing the signature of a different patient. Emily's heart raced as she realized the significance of the room. It was Dr. Blackwood's infamous chamber of desolation. It was said that Dr. Blackwood had used this room for his most heinous experiments, attempting to merge the minds of his patients into a single consciousness. The process had driven the patients to madness, and the room bore witness to their collective suffering. As Emily and her team entered the chamber, they were overcome by an overwhelming sense of dread. Whispers filled the air, and the walls seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. Suddenly, the room's heavy door slammed shut behind them, trapping them inside. Panic set in as they struggled to open the door, but it refused to yield. Emily's team huddled together, their flashlights flickering, casting eerie shadows on the walls covered in the tortured scrawls of long-deceased patients. Then they heard a voice, a chilling, inhuman voice that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. It was the anguished cries of the patients, their tortured souls still trapped within the chamber, seeking release from their eternal suffering. As the voice grew louder, Emily and her team felt an overwhelming presence in the room, an unseen force that pressed down on them, suffocating and malevolent. The walls closed in. The scribbles on the walls came to life, and the air grew frigid. Emily knew they had to escape, but the room seemed to feed on their fear, growing more powerful with each passing moment. Desperation gave way to terror, as they realized that they might become part of the chamber's dreadful legacy. In a final act of defiance, Emily pulled out a makeshift Ouija board and attempted to communicate with the trapped souls. The planchette moved with a life of its own, spelling out a message. "Release us." Summoning all her courage, Emily pleaded with the spirits to let them go. Miraculously, the room's malevolent grip began to loosen, and the door creaked open. Gasping for breath, they stumbled out into the dimly lit hallway. The investigation had taken a harrowing toll on Emily and her team, leaving them forever scarred by their encounter with the Chamber of Desolation. They left the Blackwood Sanitarium, vowing never to return. But the nightmares and whispers of the tormented souls would haunt their dreams for the rest of their lives. The legend of the Blackwood Sanitarium lived on, a dark tale whispered around campfires and shared in hushed tones. It served as a chilling reminder that some horrors are so profound, so deeply rooted in the fabric of reality, that they can never truly be escaped. And so, The legend of the Blackwood Sanitarium endured, a nightmarish legacy that would continue to haunt the minds of those who dared to listen, forever depriving them of peaceful sleep